I won't tell you how Deadpool 2 was made until you watch the video about the first film. This film became a worthy continuation of the story of Marvel's most daring and cynical anti-hero, and it did not disappoint either devoted fans or picky critics. Despite tight deadlines, the unexpected departure of the director from the project, and a tragedy on set, the creators managed to present audiences with a truly thrilling spectacle, packed with absurd violence and top-tier dark humor. Movies Inside Out presents Deadpool 2 is a 2018 superhero action comedy starring Ryan Reynolds as the Merc with a mouth, who this time is forced to face off against the mutant-cyborg Cable, while enlisting the help of superhero friends. Sorry, not those superhero friends. What real-life superpower does Reynolds have? Why did the director shoot scenes that were never meant to make the final cut? And which Hollywood star had the shortest cameo in film history? We'll answer these questions and more in our new video. Get comfortable, there's a lot of fun ahead. The creation story. The story of Deadpool 2 began in September 2015, shortly before the release of the first film. Even then, producers had already started discussing ideas for a potential sequel, planning to finally introduce the anti-hero Cable, who never appeared in the first movie, as well as the lucky mutant Domino. Immediately after Deadpool's successful premiere in February 2016, Fox officially launched production on the sequel. Producer Simon Kinberg noted that they didn't want to make the second film bigger and more expensive, as is often the case with commercially successful sequels. Instead, they aimed to preserve the atmosphere and freshness of the first movie. According to him, the biggest challenge in creating Deadpool 2 was the lack of time to refine the details, as opposed to the nearly 10 years spent developing the first Deadpool. Meanwhile, screenwriters Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese, director Tim Miller, and of course, Ryan Reynolds returned to the project. In addition to reprising his role as Deadpool, Reynolds also became a producer and co-writer, which gave him the authority to participate in casting decisions and have creative control over the entire project. Interestingly, Ryan created a special Deadpool 2 playlist, which he, Wernick, and Reese listened to while working on the script, with some songs even making it into the final film. However, Reynolds and Miller had different visions for the film, leading to numerous conflicts. The director wanted a more stylized and less violent sequel, while Reynolds insisted on keeping the dark humor and R-rated tone of the first movie. Additionally, Miller envisioned Kyle Chandler as Cable, which Reynolds strongly opposed. Unsurprisingly, the studio sided with its lead star rather than a first-time director. As a result, in October 2016, Miller decided to leave the project due to creative differences with the actor. Despite their disagreements, Reynolds acknowledged Miller's significant contribution to Deadpool's success. Although the screenwriters aimed to maintain the tone of the first film, they wanted to focus more on multiple X-Men characters and their need for family, unlike the first part, which primarily explored Deadpool and Vanessa's love story. Initially, Reese and Wernick planned for the sequel to take place 5 years after the first film, with Deadpool already a father.
Baby factory's open for business.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
However, they quickly abandoned this idea, realizing it wouldn't work. Originally, Vanessa was supposed to survive, but the creators decided that Deadpool would have stronger motivation if he lost everything he loved. The studio immediately began searching for a new director, considering candidates such as Drew Goddard, Magnus Martins, Rupert Sanders, and David Leitch. Ultimately, Leitch, co-director of John Wick and director of Atomic Blonde, was chosen as the ideal candidate by both Fox executives and Ryan Reynolds, thanks to his unique approach to shooting action scenes.
I guess dubstep never dies.
The studio signed a contract with him in November 2016, and then began casting for new roles. Casting. Ryan Reynolds, in addition to playing Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, also provided the voice and facial expressions for the supervillain Juggernaut.
I'm gonna shove that cab driver right up your ass.
Interestingly, Reynolds' dual role was so secretive that even his co-stars only found out about it near the end of filming. Meanwhile, the character's motion capture was performed by the film's director himself, David Leitch, who had a background as a stuntman and a stunt double for stars like Brad Pitt and Jean-Claude Van Damme. Leitch also made a cameo appearance as one of the mutants. Several actresses were considered for the role of Domino, including Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Sophia Boutella, Sienna Miller, Lizzie Kaplan, Stephanie Sigman, Sylvia Hoeks, Mackenzie Davis, Ruby Rose, Kelly Rohrbach, and Aubrey Plaza. After reviewing all the candidates, producers focused on Afro-Latina actresses, ultimately casting Zazie Beetz.
I'm lucky.
She impressed Reynolds and Leitch so much that they decided to let her wear her natural hair instead of Domino's signature straight hair from the comics. However, Beetz had to undergo 2 months of intense training, spending 4 hours a day to prepare for the physically demanding role. In the comics, Domino is portrayed as an ally and former love interest of Cable, who despises Deadpool. However, in the film, she sides with the main character. Additionally, her comic book appearance features unnaturally pale skin and a dark spot around her eye. But since Beetz is black, the spot was reversed to white. Russell, aka Firefist, was played by Julian Dennison, the sole candidate for the role.
Burn that headmaster alive, and then take a selfie with a smoldering corpse.
Reynolds was so impressed by his performance in Hunt for the Wilder People that he insisted on casting him. Ironically, Dennison wasn't able to watch Deadpool 2 in theaters because he was only 15 at the time of its release. Several big names were considered for the role of Cable, including Dolph Lundgren, Mel Gibson, Bruce Willis, Sylvester Stallone, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. However, the role ultimately went to Josh Brolin.
Your entire generation f***ed this planet into a coma.
Boom! Spoiler alert.
The actor signed a 4-film contract, with Deadpool 2 serving as just an introduction to his character's arc. To prepare for the role, Brolin had to follow a strict diet, dropping from his usual 209 pounds to 181 pounds, despite being 5 feet 10 inches tall. Brad Pitt was also considered for the role of Cable, but he turned it down due to scheduling conflicts. However, he still made an appearance in Deadpool 2 in the tiniest cameo as the invisible mutant Vanisher. Originally, Vanisher was meant to remain unseen throughout the film, but the filmmakers decided that his brief reveal could serve as a fun celebrity cameo. Leitch and Reynolds immediately thought of Pitt, and luckily, he agreed to the quick shoot. Rumor has it that Pitt completed his scene where Vanisher gets electrocuted within just 7 minutes. His actual on-screen appearance lasts less than 2 seconds, totaling just 37 frames of film, making it likely the shortest cameo in cinematic history. Pitt declined a paycheck for the role, instead requesting that Reynolds personally deliver him a Starbucks coffee. According to Pitt, this cameo was enough to satisfy his curiosity about superhero movies, something he had never been a part of before. Honestly, who needs to play a superhero when you look better than most of them at 60? The other X-Force members, Bedlam, Shatterstar, and Zeitgeist, were played by Terry Crews, Louis Tan, and Bill Skarsgård, respectively.
I can distort electrical fields.
No, I spit acidic vomit. Plus, I'm basically better than you at everything.
The role of Peter, the superhero with no powers, was given to Rob Delaney, who had impressed Reynolds in the TV series Catastrophe.
I don't know much about this Cable fella, but I guarantee he hasn't killed as many people as Melanoma has.
Matt Damon also made a cameo in the film. When he met Reynolds, he was pitched a monologue about toilet paper and wet wipes, which he found so hilarious that he agreed to take part immediately.
They're for babies. Finally, one more pass with toilet paper, maybe clear out that excess moisture.
Damon is nearly unrecognizable under heavy prosthetic makeup, and in the credits, he is listed as Dickie Greenleaf, the name of Jude Law's character in The Talented Mr. Ripley, whom Damon's character impersonates in that film. The cast also featured Shioli Kutsuna as Yukio and Eddie Marsan as the orphanage director. Additionally, the film includes cameos from its screenwriters. Paul Wernick played a news cameraman, while Rhett Reese appeared as a helicopter pilot. Reese had even considered playing Peter himself if Delaney had declined the role. Of course, the main cast from the first film returned. Morena Baccarin reprised her role as Vanessa, Brianna Hildebrand as Negasonic Teenage Warhead, TJ Miller as Weasel, Karan Soni as Dopinder, and Leslie Uggams as Blind Al. Gina Carano was initially set to return as Angel Dust, but opted out after Tim Miller left the project. Although Stan Lee didn't make a physical cameo in Deadpool 2, his portrait appears on a building wall in the scene where Domino parachutes down. The filming process. Filming for Deadpool 2 began in June 2017 at Hatley Castle in Victoria, which was used as the X-Mansion, and wrapped up in October in Vancouver. In the first film, Deadpool humorously remarked on the fact that he only found Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead in the massive mansion. To address this, the creators included a scene in the sequel where viewers can spot Quicksilver, Cyclops, Storm, Beast, Nightcrawler, and Professor X. However, none of the actors who played these superheroes were actually present on the Deadpool set. This scene was shot by Simon Kinberg during the production of his directorial debut, X-Men Dark Phoenix, in Montreal, and was later merged with footage of Ryan Reynolds during post-production. No wonder Deadpool never noticed any of the X-Men behind him. For nearly half of the film, Deadpool appears without his mask, as the writers wanted to use his facial expressions for more vivid and emotional scenes. Ryan Reynolds was not thrilled about this decision, since Deadpool's makeup was extremely time-consuming and uncomfortable. However, by the end of filming the sequel, the makeup process had been reduced to just 2 hours, compared to the 3.5 hours it took in the first Deadpool film. Initially, the afterlife sequences featuring Deadpool and Vanessa were planned to be filmed in a water tank, as Ryan Reynolds has the rare ability to hold his breath for extended periods, a skill inherited from his grandmother, who was a competitive swimmer. The filmmakers were eager to showcase this ability in the film, but these scenes had to be canceled because the chemicals in the water negatively affected the actor's health. Additionally, Black Tom Cassidy was originally intended to be one of the main antagonists, but the filmmakers decided that the movie already had enough villains. Instead, they redirected part of the budget toward bringing Juggernaut to life. David Leitch initially wanted to remove the scene where Deadpool deflects bullets with his swords, thinking it was too comedic for a dramatic moment. However, Reynolds insisted that it was a great scene, and it ultimately made it into the final cut. Unlike the first film, Fox agreed to fund the continuous presence of the screenwriters on set this time around. Leitch and Reynolds were thrilled about this decision, as Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick were constantly adjusting the script and coming up with new jokes and ideas. The filming process was particularly challenging for Zazie Beetz, who played Domino. Her costume was so tight and impractical that she fainted while filming the truck convoy scene, and even suffered a burn from a shell casing, leaving a scar on her chest. But all of this paled in comparison to the real tragedy that occurred on set. On August 14th, 2017, stuntwoman Sequana Joy Harris, performing a stunt as Domino, died in a motorcycle accident after losing control and crashing into Shaw Tower. Harris was not wearing a helmet, as her character relied solely on her luck in the film. Various sources provided conflicting accounts of the circumstances surrounding her death. According to one version, Harris, who is primarily a professional motorcycle racer and had never worked as a stuntwoman before, was hired mainly due to her matching race rather than her experience. Some claimed she was not adequately prepared for such complex stunts. However, producers insisted on filming as scheduled, as finding a replacement would have required adjusting the production timeline and increasing the budget. Other reports stated that Harris's professionalism was never in question, as she had performed the stunt flawlessly multiple times during rehearsals. Later, Josh Brolin commented on the incident, calling it an unfortunate accident with no one to blame. Audience reactions to the tragedy were mixed. Some called for a boycott of the film due to what they saw as the studio's reckless decisions, while others wanted to support the filmmakers to ensure that Joy Harris's death was not in vain. Notably, the film's end credits included a tribute in memory of Sequana Harris. What do you think really happened on set? The problem surrounding Deadpool 2 did not end there. During post-production, allegations of sexual misconduct and inappropriate behavior surfaced against T.J. Miller, who played Weasel. Many fans urged the studio to replace Miller with another actor, as had been done with Kevin Spacey in All the Money in the World, where Christopher Plummer reshot all of Spacey's scenes. However, Deadpool 2 was already in its final stages of editing, making such a replacement impossible. Ryan Reynolds later confirmed that Miller would not be returning for any future Deadpool films. Interestingly, this controversy was subtly referenced in the movie itself. During a news ticker sequence, there is a headline stating that Christopher Plummer has declined a role in Deadpool 2. In another creative twist, additional action scenes featuring the X-Force members were shot solely for the trailer, misleading audiences into thinking the team had a significant role, only for most of them to die almost immediately in the final cut. To further promote the film, Fox recreated the Blu-ray covers of its most popular movies, replacing their main characters with Deadpool. Some of the films given this Deadpool treatment included The Terminator, Predator, and Fight Club. The visual effects for Colossus and Juggernaut were handled by Framestore. The CGI model of Colossus was redesigned compared to the first film to give the character a more defined and angular look, while his movements and facial expressions were once again provided by Andrei Tricotta and Stefan Kapicic, respectively. On set, Juggernaut was represented by a 6.6-foot-tall stand-in wearing an oversized helmet to match the character's 9.5 feet height. For the actor's convenience, a full-scale replica of Juggernaut's metal helmet was built, but the final version was entirely digital, just like the character himself. After Tim Miller left the project, composer Junkie XL also departed. He was replaced by Tyler Bates, who had previously collaborated with David Leitch. The director also wanted the film to feature an original song that would serve as an emotional core for the characters. That song turned out to be Aches, performed by Celine Dion. Leitch even directed a music video for it, in which Deadpool, wearing high heels, was played by French dancer Yannis Marshall. At the end of the video, Deadpool jokingly states that the song is more suited for Titanic than Deadpool 2, to which Dion sarcastically responds by calling him Spider-Man. One of the defining aspects of Deadpool 2 is its abundance of references and Easter eggs. Some are obvious to the general audience.
From now on, we'll be known as X-Force.
Isn't that a little derivative?
While others are hidden gems meant for the most attentive movie and comic book fans. Let's take a look at some of the most interesting and amusing ones. The opening credits sequence immediately reminds viewers of the James Bond franchise. Interestingly, instead of listing standard names in the credits, the film uses humorous descriptions. For example, David Leitch is credited as one of the guys who killed John Wick's dog, referencing his work on the action movie starring Keanu Reeves. There are several Marvel references as well. A weakened Deadpool claims that wielding a bow and arrow would make him look like Hawkeye.
Give me a bow and arrow, I'm basically Hawkeye.
Referencing Jeremy Renner's character. He also calls Domino the Black Widow, a nod to Scarlett Johansson, who, fun fact, was once married to Ryan Reynolds in real life. Cable is nicknamed Thanos, a direct reference to Josh Brolin's portrayal of the Avengers villain, and Deadpool jokingly refers to Dopinder as Brown Panther. When Deadpool escapes from a horde of criminals, he jumps into a taxi and flips upside down, a moment directly inspired by the prologue of Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Deadpool calls Negasonic teenage warhead 11, referencing the heroine from Stranger Things, and also mimics Sharon Stone's iconic leg crossing movement from Basic Instinct using his regrowing baby legs. Interestingly, the entire baby legs scene was written solely by Ryan Reynolds and ended up spanning 11 pages of the final script. Wolverine's prison number in Deadpool's drawing is 24,601, the same as Jean Valjean's from Les Miserables, famously portrayed by Hugh Jackman. Additionally, Deadpool's music box, which recreates Wolverine's death scene from Logan, was so loved by Reynolds that he took it home after filming. Deadpool is baffled by the idea that luck is considered a superpower, and jokingly suggests that it was invented by someone who can't draw feet. This is a direct jab at Rob Liefeld, one of Deadpool and Domino's creators, who is famously known for avoiding drawing characters' feet and hands. According to rumors, Liefeld actually appreciated the joke. In one scene, Deadpool calls Cable One-Eyed Willie, referencing the pirate from The Goonies, a film that also starred Josh Brolin. Deadpool apologizes to Colossus while In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel plays, recreating a famous moment from Say Anything, where John Cusack holds up a boombox. The orphanage is named Essex House, an Easter egg referencing the X-Men villain Mr. Sinister, whose real name is Nathaniel Essex, and who ran a sinister orphanage for young mutants. Juggernaut explains that he wears his helmet to prevent his brother from reading his thoughts, a nod to the comics, where Professor X is his half-brother. In the post-credits scene, Deadpool travels back in time to kill his X-Men Origins, Wolverine version, as well as Ryan Reynolds himself, before he could sign on for the disastrous Green Lantern movie. Throughout the film, Deadpool repeatedly sings "Papa, Can You Hear Me?" from Yentl, which he and Vanessa watched together. He later realizes that it sounds strikingly similar to "Do You Want to Build a Snowman?" from Frozen. Interestingly, it was Reynolds himself who first pointed out the resemblance. In a funny twist, Barbra Streisand, who originally performed "Papa, Can You Hear Me?" is actually Josh Brolin's stepmother in real life. However, the filmmakers admitted that they completely forgot this fact when writing the jokes for the movie. Which Easter eggs did you notice? Share your thoughts in the comments. Movie mistakes and errors. Now, let's go through the mistakes and errors made by the creators of Deadpool 2. Deadpool turns all the stove knobs so that they point to the right, but a few seconds later, they are suddenly turned in different directions. On the table, a mysterious yellow object is visible, but it disappears when viewed from another angle. Meanwhile, a playing card on the floor also vanishes. A cigarette wouldn't be able to ignite a barrel of kerosene, and even if it could, the explosion should have happened in the neighboring barrel instead. The hole in the barrel is initially at Deadpool's elbow level, but in the next shot, it suddenly shifts up to his shoulder. Also, where did the blue Crocs go? Deadpool was clearly wearing them before the explosion, but when Colossus pulls him out of the debris, he's suddenly wearing black boots. Deadpool is shot dozens of times, yet his costume miraculously remains intact with no visible bullet holes. Meanwhile, the shape and position of the bloodstains on the bar counter keep changing between shots. When Deadpool wipes the blood off the security camera lens, he uses his entire palm. However, security camera lenses are very small and could be wiped clean with just a finger. The flowers hanging under Dopinder's car visor suddenly disappear, and a knife block somehow flies faster than a bullet. Vanessa looks frightened by Sergei even before he appears in the doorway, and she moves her shoulder back a split second before the bullet actually hits it. Car tires wouldn't screech so loudly on a wet road. It is known that the collars are nearly impossible to remove, yet later they shatter easily when slammed against the floor. When Deadpool and Russell enter their cell, the shadow of a non-existent person briefly appears behind them. The token was just near Deadpool's head, but in the next shot, it is still at waist level. During the fall, Cable is first shown flying in front of Deadpool, but in the next second, he is behind him. At the same moment, Deadpool's weapon lands several meters away, but then suddenly appears right next to him. His arms are initially outstretched, but when the camera angle changes, they are bent at the elbows. Also, the blood on the back of Deadpool's head completely vanishes within a minute. Deadpool outlines parts of his drawing with a red pencil, but the markings disappear in wider shots. In close-ups, the parachute straps are dangling behind Deadpool's head, but in wide shots, they are nowhere to be seen. Deadpool is hit by a car and remains lying on the hood, though he should have been thrown several meters forward. Also, he wouldn't have been able to clench his fingers with a bullet wound in his hand. Hydraulic fluid leaks from the truck's brakes, causing it to lose control. However, vehicles of this size use air brakes, which automatically activate when damaged. Deadpool loses one of his pistols, and Cable catches it, but after the crash, both of Deadpool's pistols mysteriously reappear in his holsters. The soles of Deadpool's boots look different in various shots of the same scene. Blind Al points her gun to the side, despite having already done so a few seconds earlier, and once again. The visor inconsistency. The papers on it look completely different between shots. Domino first looks out of the taxi window, then suddenly disappears, only to later stand on Cable's right side before abruptly moving to Deadpool's left and then shifting back again. At the same time, Dopinder, who is running in the background, vanishes for a second. Just a moment ago, there was no one behind Deadpool, but suddenly a security guard appears out of nowhere. No matter how strong a person is, it's physically impossible to rock a bus just by grabbing its front. Russell's clothes never catch fire, even though his hands heat up to hundreds or even thousands of degrees. A collar suddenly appears on Deadpool's neck, despite the fact that he escaped from prison without one. At first, a pistol is lying on a concrete slab, then it appears on the ground, and later, it mysteriously moves to the side on its own. A bullet exits from the left side of Deadpool's back, but later, there is no visible wound or hole in that spot. Cable walks away from Deadpool's body, but when viewed from the afterlife perspective, he is still standing in the same place. Of course, the film contains other mistakes as well, but they had no impact on the audience's enjoyment. Did you happen to notice any of these inconsistencies while watching the movie? Deleted scenes and bloopers. The initial director's cut by David Leitch was around 2 hours and 12 minutes long, but it was later trimmed down to 2 hours. However, Leitch did not abandon the extended version and released the super duper cut. Some of the included scenes are additional footage of Deadpool's world tour, a scene where Deadpool enters a polar bear's den, then drinks bleach and jumps off a rooftop.
I can't believe he's still alive.
I can't believe you left the house in that shirt.
An altered sequence of Russell arriving at the orphanage with extended torture scenes. A moment where Deadpool labels food containers in the X-Mansion kitchen.
Why is he dressed like a registered sex offender?
Can we focus for a moment, ladies? Please, we need to talk about next month's meal plan.
A post-credits scene in which Deadpool travels back in time to kill newborn Hitler. Interestingly, this scene contains a factual inaccuracy. Hitler's mother gave birth to him in a hotel, not a maternity ward, as shown in the film.
Hi, this is a toughie. Yeesh.
Additionally, many other scenes were slightly extended or altered. In December 2018, a re-edited PG-13 version of Deadpool 2 was released under the title Once Upon a Deadpool. This version removed all graphic violence and profanity, and the graffiti featuring Stan Lee, who passed away on November 12, 2018, was modified to include RIP. The film also introduced a scene featuring an elderly couple resembling characters from Up, who remain completely unfazed by the strange man in a red suit wielding guns.
Oh, I'm sorry.
French distributors attempted to cut out all adult moments from the original theatrical release to make the film accessible to audiences of all ages. In contrast, India retained the 18+ rating but still removed some explicit language. And, of course, countless takes were ruined due to actors forgetting their lines or breaking into laughter at their own mistakes.
I'll tell you why I'm here.
Singing in the rain, I'm singing in the rain.
No idea why this is going so slowly. I'm flooring it right now.
Oh, shit.
Okay, it's okay.
I sat on the pillow.
Worldwide recognition. The premiere of Deadpool 2 took place at Leicester Square in London on May 10th, 2018, and the film was released in the United States on May 18th. The movie was a massive box office success, grossing $324.6 million in the US and Canada, and $460.5 million in other countries, bringing its total earnings to $785.8 million against a budget of $110 million. Notably, the first Deadpool managed to earn nearly the same amount, but with half the budget. Still, Deadpool 2 managed to break several records. Opening in 4,332 theaters, it became the widest release in history at that time. It also had the best opening day among Fox releases and became the highest-grossing R-rated film of all time. However, in 2019, Joker surpassed that record by earning over $1 billion. Official figures for Ryan Reynolds' salary on the film were not disclosed, but some sources estimate it to be between $30 million and $40 million. Like the first film, critics highly praised the sequel, calling it an excellent parody of the superhero genre, and highlighting its hilarious special effects, solid direction, and outstanding ensemble cast. However, some experts found it somewhat predictable and excessively cynical. Deadpool 2 received numerous nominations for various film awards. Among the most notable, the Critics' Choice Awards, which nominated the film in the categories of Best Comedy, Best Action Movie, and Best Comedy Actor for Ryan Reynolds. The People's Choice Awards, which recognized the film and Reynolds' performance. The Teen Choice Awards, which nominated Reynolds, Julian Dennison, and Zazie Beetz. The film's soundtrack was also nominated for a Grammy in the category Best Compilation Soundtrack for Visual Media. Even during production of the second film, Fox planned to develop Deadpool 3, which was initially supposed to introduce the X-Force team. However, later, the creators decided that a third Deadpool film and an X-Force movie should be separate projects. But in 2019, 20th Century Fox was acquired by Disney, leading to the cancellation of all planned X-Men films, with control of the franchise shifting to Marvel Studios. Fortunately, production resumed, but now within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Disney initially considered incorporating Deadpool into Marvel films with a PG-13 rating, but ultimately allowed the sequel to retain its signature R rating. While the fate of the X-Force film remains uncertain, Deadpool 3 officially entered production in 2022. Reese, Wernick, and Reynolds returned to work on the script, with Sean Levy taking the director's chair. Levy had previously collaborated with Reynolds on the action comedy films Free Guy and The Adam Project. the third installment of Deadpool's adventures, this time featuring Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman, was titled Deadpool and Wolverine. Its premiere within Marvel's Phase 5 took place on July 26, 2024. Which Deadpool movie do you find the wittiest and most entertaining?